what Celtic shirt is that, or who is it? It's okay, of course. Larry,
Of course.
My little Larry guy sitting right here.
Flip the bird. And then, of course, one of my writing buddies.
Nice.
Larry Legend would have given his all in Game 6.
Nice. Yeah, he would have. Alrighty.
No.
So let's get started. Welcome to. Yeah, that's all good. Paul, take us away. No, I'm kidding. Welcome to Dead Headspace. I'm your host, Patrick R. McDonough, and I am joined always by my co-host, Brennan LaFaro. Say hi, Brennan.
Hello, everybody.
And today we are joined by a man that we have wanted to come on for some time now. He is a fellow New Englander, Paul Tremblay. Say hello, sir.
Hello, sir. Hey, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah. No kidding. We've wanted to have you on for some time, man. It's first off, there's a lot of people from Mass, and I didn't know that until I moved to New Jersey about 5 years ago. So that's kind of a bummer. But then you got new ones like in the mix, like Gretchen and Eric. And joining us is Mr. John Langan. He has been on episode 113 was just me, not Brennan. Brennan didn't join because he didn't want to. And episode 140, Dark Stars with John F.D. Taff and Josh Mallerman. Say hello, John Langan.
Guys, there is a new Menudo document. They are still around. It's on HBO Max. It's called something like Menudo Forever, which is both, I don't know, is it great or is it like a living death?
That's the best
of all the opening lines. That was not one I expected.
That's the best opening line.
Well, given the importance of popular music to Paul's new novel, I thought I would embrace that, right? So,
Did Menudo start in the 80s? Late 80s? I can't remember.
They are eternal. They are eternal. They are eternal. That's when Jesus was born, Menudo were singing the lullabies to him. When Moses came down from the mountain, Menudo were singing at the foot of the mountain.
We've reached a point in the relationship with John where now he doesn't give a fuck about us in the sense where we're not going to professionalism ever. And he's still holding a grudge against Brennan.
Is he here? I haven't seen him yet. We had an agreement, Patrick. We had an agreement, okay, about that guy.
We killed him.
I was like, I'll come on for Paul because, but I mean, come on, man.
LaFaro better not say shit.
There he is. Yeah. Paul's like, this is going to be a great interview, and now it's not.
No, this is great. I'm enjoying it. I want to know more about Menudo.
Well, they sprang to prominence in the early days of the universe.
I'm interested in what got Mr. Tremblay into horror.
Good segue.
Yeah,
Menudo. It was definitely Menudo.
Geez, so I guess I would credit. I don't know how old you are, Patrick or Brennan. I assume you're much younger.
33.
33. Oh,
really?
Way younger.
I like that he's wearing a Celtics jersey to rub it in.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I used to grow up like my hometown's about 30 minutes from where Paul grew up.
Nice. Yeah.
Bridgewater, what up? Sorry, I cut you off. David Langan, you're rubbing off on me.
No, it's okay. So I mentioned the age New England thing because in the late 70s, early 80s, pre-cable television, oh my God, I'm freaking old. There was a program on weekends called Creature Double Feature. So people of an age in New England, really, that show holds a special place in our hearts. So every Saturday, the first movie would always be a kaiju movie. So that's what brought me in, because I don't know, as most little kids, including my own, love dinosaurs, have a dinosaur sort of obsession phase. Mm-hmm. And so dinosaurs, led me into Godzilla, because to me, Godzilla was just like an awesome dinosaur, like the coolest one, he was actually around and could breathe fire, and fight the smog monster. And then the second movie was always like a 50s B movie or a Hammer horror movie, usually black and white, usually like Attack of the Colossal Man, Attack of the Giant Leeches, Attack of the Killer Shrews. Anything with attack in the title was pretty much the second movie. And as a kid, those movies, as goofy as they are now, would terrify me, give me nightmares. So I always had like this I'm attracted to it, but also like really scared very easily by horror. So for me, it was, from there, my town, I think was an early adopter of cable television. So man, I just spent my wasted youth either shooting hoops by myself in the backyard or watching HBO, because then HBO was just showing the same movies over and over again. And watching horror movies as well.
Brennan, go ahead, because I actually want to hear what your follow-up is.
Paul, what got you into math?
It's never been put to me quite that way, Brennan. What got me into math? It was just always my best subject in school. There's definitely something in my brain that loves numbers. Like as a kid, I loved baseball, especially the stats. Like I didn't play D&D mainly because I didn't have any friends. But what I did play was the sports D&D version called Baseball Stratomatic, where you would have dice and charts, and you would have player cards, and what you rolled, to determine if it was a single, if you could take extra bases and stuff like that. So that was a game that I played, with my brother and my father. We did manage to snag a few kids in. But anyway, all that's to say is like I loved baseball statistics. There was a time in my life where I probably knew every cumulative baseball stat. Actually that time would be in the 80s. I've sort of lost step with those statistics. So yeah, there was definitely like a love of numbers, that was just there. And in school, I was just good at math, so I just sort of stuck with it because I didn't know what the hell I was going to do when I went to college.
Do you really give a shit what got him into math, or are you just trying to be
You
funny?
know what? I do. Let me continue, please. So what I find interesting about that is, there's a lot of in the writing. So many of them, you do see they teach film, they teach English. I teach music. The kind of, I kind of roll that in with the creative aspect. Whereas I feel like, the math and the creative side, I feel like those are two different parts of the brain. But again, that's my opinion. I'm interested in your thoughts on that, how the two tie together.
I mean, I think classically it definitely is two parts of the different parts of the brain, but at the same time, as I've gotten older, I have found I think there is quite a bit of overlap. And I've learned more watching my son make music about the artistic connection, because he was not a good math student, but he's really excellent at composing music, and he knows rhythms, he knows where things are supposed to fit, and with his production software, like it seems all very I would say mathematical, like engineer mathematical, actually applying math, which I suck at. I can only do like the theoretical that no one cares about math. Yeah, I mean, there are a few of us math writers out there, like Stuart Onan, who's a very good friend and really been a mentor to me. Like he was an engineering major as an undergrad before he started writing. So I don't know, like every once in a while, I'm pleased to come across sort of like a math or a STEM science kind of writer. I mean, I guess there's a lot more in the science fiction field, but who cares about them?
Well, quick aside, I mean, you can't really separate music from math, in my opinion. I think the two are so interconnected. But regardless of whether you teach English or math or music or whatever, I think that I think one of the reasons you see so many educators that kind of go into writing is I've always felt like when you see so many kids during the course of a year, and a lot of it is in limited spans of time, I see kids for 45 minutes a week, once a week. You get to kind of see these little glimpses, but kind of understand the deeper characteristics. And I think it's such a valuable skill that you can kind of carry over into writing. It's almost like kind of the tip of the iceberg idea. It's like you can see, just this much and kind of extrapolate the rest. And I wonder if you've kind of always found that from, your student body.
Absolutely. That's a great way of putting it, Brennan. I've never really thought of it in those terms, but I think you're right. Especially like in my case, I often would have students as freshmen in geometry, and then I would have a handful of the same ones when I was teaching calculus later. And just to see like, these different humans from when it was still like their sameness, there was still some of their same personality, but to see them as almost like full-grown adults compared to what they were as, goofy freshmen in high school, it was, pretty amazing, and also sort of informative for the writer part. The thing I usually say, which I still think is true, is being around students is a great lesson in voice for me. And just like how, like I'll hear the students, and John can talk about this too, because he's very good at riffing on the the slang that his students use and wields it against them like a cruel taskmaster that he is. But the fun part is like you'll see like every 3 or 4 years with each new sort of crop of kids as they move on and graduate, you'll see this group has a set of slang words, and some of them will be regional, some of them will be national, like especially now that everyone's interconnected, there's national slang that gets passed. But you see it sort of get whittled down. You see it get whittled down to like not only regional, Massachusetts, but it'll get like school specific, because my school's a pretty small school. And it's just kind of interesting to see those, vocabulary petri dishes sort of play out. And I definitely, try to pay attention, to what they're saying and how they're saying it, and, take advantage of it.
It does lend it. One of my favorite things that you've written is Head Full of Ghosts, as is a lot of people. And one of the things that really brought that book to life was the way that you wrote the two sisters. And I feel like there's a way of understanding and approaching that, you've certainly read books by people who write dialogue for children and have absolutely no idea how children talk. And you can tell, 2 pages into it. And if you lose that authenticity, it doesn't matter how good the story is, because nobody's investing in it. And I do think that is a very, very valid observation, is just understanding the way that kids communicate. I mean, you can think, oh, I remember when I was 15, but number one, even for me, that was 20, 25 years
Right.
ago. I'm bad at math, but it's kind of through a blurry lens. And if you don't have that regular interaction, or even just like a limited one with your own kids, you just can't really aspire to that authenticity.
Right. Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. It's funny, that book. So 8-year-old Mary's voice was definitely 95% my daughter, Emma, who was Mary's age at the time when I was writing it. And with a little bit of my son, Cole, mixed in. So much so that was the last book of mine that my wife has read. Because she was so upset by that book. Which I get. When people know me, it's, when I say people know me, like people in my family, it's hard to read. I got to be honest, sometimes like some of my favorite responses, like I've had a few people when they read like Disappearance of Devil's Rock, I'm like, wow, those teen characters are really annoying. I'm like, yeah, 13, 14-year-old teenage boys are really annoying. That was sort of what I was going for. So, but I appreciate that. And so like, it feels like I'm actually almost at a crossroads a little bit, just because my kids are older. Like my son is going to be 22 in September, and my daughter's going to be a senior in high school. So I'm definitely becoming more and more removed, from them being smaller kids or younger kids. And this year I'm taking a year off of teaching. So I don't know. I feel like I'm edging towards something else, because I've spent, so many books writing about kids and parents. So I don't know what that is. Tell me, John, what is it?
It's stories about depressed, middle-aged white men.
Yeah.
Stuck in their house.
Are you talking about Clerks or Clerks 2 or?
Yes, that's exactly it. Oh my God, this was. Oh man, yeah. The slang is funny, right? I mean, when I first started 4 years ago teaching secondary school, it was facts. That was a big one. That was how you said something was true. Facts, and if it was really true, it was dead ass. Which apparently means like the center of the target, not the center of your ass, or a necrotic ass or something like that, And then if something was really good, it was fire, or fuego, some of my kids said. And then more recently, it's been if something was extreme, it was OD, like overdose. And now if something is extreme, it's out of pocket. And I tried to turn that into oop. I was like, you mean it's oop? And they were like, no, it's not oop. And I was like, what about oops? Out of pocket, seriously. And they were like, stop it. Please stop. And dope came back. Dope has made a comeback, because that's dope, man.
I think your school is stuck in the 90s somewhere. I don't know.
It's sort of, well, because we draw, like we geographically speaking, we draw on an even bigger area than your school does. So
Yeah.
I think it's like a mix of kids coming from
Right.
largely from New York City, but from California, from Massachusetts, and so you get this weird kind of melding of things. When we used to have a bigger Chinese population, an international population, there were also a lot of like Chinese curse words thrown in there as well. Of course, all the kids learned. So they learned how to call each other things. And I never could quite figure out what was the greeting and what was the curse word. So I just didn't say anything.
For me, I would just add one word. So mid was big with our freshmen this year. That's mid, which means like middle, but it's really a negative connotation.
Okay.
And I learned a way I would have preferred not to have learned, because my daughter Emma on TikTok, she's like, yeah, I saw, on TikTok, there are people describing Disappearance at Devil's Rock as mid. What does that mean? Like, don't tell me this stuff. Like, I try to curate my life to avoid like randos, like, crapping on my books. And my teenage daughter is telling me that my book is mid on TikTok. Thanks.
Wow, mid. That's tough. That's tough. You've been TikTok, man. Apparently you can be ratioed too, and you don't want to be ratioed.
Wait, what?
I know that one. I understood that reference.
Thank you, Captain America.
My kid's only 2.5, so like I don't know what I like. The last updated slang word I knew was like slapped and or slaps.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, that still shows up every now and again. Yeah.
So what's ratioed? Because that doesn't make sense in the context to me.
You don't want to be ratioed. That's all I'm saying. You don't. It's they tried to convince me it was a sort of a harmless kind of like if someone you repost something on Twitter, say, and it gets more the original gets more likes than yours does, than your repost does, but that's not what it means.
Reminds me of this time in high school when this kid had one word under his senior picture of his yearbook, and that was oh God, my mind just went
forgot
blank.
that one word.
I forgot that one word. It starts with a B.
Failed.
Kind
His
of
mission,
seems like that was
his
the crux
mission
of the
failed.
That
story.
word was Klaatu Varata.
Nick too, right? Did you get it right? Did you get it right? Well, most of
Yeah.
them.
It starts with a B. It's a negative connotation. Okay, fuck it.
I just like the thought this kid crafted all his time thinking no one will be able to forget this.
Yeah.
And now, like 20 years later, it's like, actually.
It's the ultimate dig.
True story. In my high school yearbook, my freshman year of high school, the kid who did the art for it, he did all of these. They were also like a knight riding a dragon, right? Okay, that was kind of cool. And they had these long shadows. Each picture, each class had a different picture of the knight on the dragon, and the dragon was casting shadows, and the shadows were drawn as individual lines. And if you tilted the yearbook up and you looked along the page, you could see that the shadows were actually spelling out messages about the dean of discipline and what a dick he was. That kid was expelled.
Wow. I remember the word. It's Blumpkin, and
Oh dear.
That's kind of a letdown, I gotta say.
How is getting a blowjob while taking a shit a letdown to you, John? My God, you snob.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Come on. One word.
Okay. You know what? I'm done embarrassing myself in front of Paul.
To Menudo as far as words that I was not anticipating tonight.
It's a list. See, if you're watching at home, play bingo.
You won't win.
Paul, I know you already answered this question, but I'm going to read it anyways. What's your process? This is from Brian McCauley. What's your process for nurturing a story idea from an initial spark through a finished novel while still feeling excited or confident that this idea is worth investment? And I ask it on here because it's definitely worth repeating for anyone who would listen or watch this.
Sure. So, I mean, with the caveat that every story is sort of different, but I kind of fall into a pattern of like when I get like an initial spark, I'm typically, I'm super excited and it feels like, okay, this is the one that I want to work on. Usually that might involve like even like a particular scene that I want to get to, almost like a carrot at the end of the stick kind of scene. Or, I may discover that later. But typically what I'll do is when I have an idea for a novel, and I've never really had the oh, this is a short story, and then it blows up and becomes a novel for whatever reason. Maybe it's the strict math person in me. I don't know. If I know it's a short story, I pretty much know from inception, okay, this is a short story, and then this thing is going to be a novel. So typically what I'll do, I'm looking around, see if I have any notebooks around. I don't. No, I do. I keep like a bunch of, I don't know, like the pretentious author moleskin sort of notebooks around, but I've got like 10 of them. And partly it's because I lose them sometimes. But that's kind of fun because I'll find like, oh, what did I write in here? Because I usually forget. But once I have a novel idea, I typically, that becomes the one notebook for my novel. So oddly enough, I can't find the notebook for Pallbearers Club. But like, here's a little notebook for A Head Full of Ghosts. Funny that Brendan brought it up. Like that was the first page. It was like idea. I don't know. Like at first, like I even wrote down like two brothers, and I quickly like crossed that out. And then I spend usually, just a bunch of pages just trying to scratch out ideas of where I think the story might go, and like, a page for characters. I'll spend probably a couple weeks or more doing that. And then usually, not all the time, but usually then I'll write some form of a plot summary. And that could take like a few weeks to a month. With A Head Full of Ghosts being, I guess, one of the only novels of the recent run that I didn't really write a outline for. Although the novel I just started now, I'm not writing an outline for either. As to why I do or don't, there's no real rhyme or reason. Sometimes I've been forced by my publisher, like they want, to get me back on book deal. Like for Pallbearers Club, I was off deal. I had to pitch them the idea for the book, and they needed like 30 to 50 pages and a summary. So I was, sort of professionally forced to write a summary, which is fine because I always feel like weakest at plot and more comfortable with I don't know, mood and character and voice and stuff like that. So once I have the outline, then I'll start in, and I go pretty slow, but it adds up, like 400 to 500 words a day. I mean, 500 words is a great day for me. But then if I just keep at it for like a year, that's usually been sort of the magic number for me. Is most books I write a complete draft in about 12 months. Sometimes longer, but usually 12 months.
Do you write and then edit the next day and then write? Is that your?
Yeah, I edit what I did the day before. And if it's a novel, I usually go all the way back to the start of a chapter. Those are like little break points for me. So I'm definitely, it feels like some days I'm not actually going further. Because what I end up doing a lot is like I'll write some new words, but those are really sort of bare bones, and then I'll go back and fill in. And usually every time I go back, I don't really cut, I add, and it just starts like growing out this way. It's like I said, sometimes it feels like I'm never going to get anywhere if I just keep adding, to the section. At some point I decide, I feel good enough to move on. But yeah, that just sort of accrues. There's a math word, accrue. Yeah, it's sort of a mid math word, I guess. And then it slapped. And then by the end, I've got a thing.
That was one of the things that when you answered that question online, you said, and you reiterated it here, trust that small piles of daily words and edits add up to a thing in about a year. And I wanted to kind of harp on that idea of patience. One theme that seems to come up, and we've had a lot of different discussions around, is the idea of, and I'm blanking on the word, Patrick, if you can jump in, but basically instant gratification, I suppose, is the best way of putting it. Writing, and just getting it out there. And you seem perfectly content to make sure that when it goes out right. And I'm wondering if that's something that is that a way you've always been with your writing, or is that something you learned to do?
It's just the way I found that's the way that works for me, and I can't tell you like how or when I found it, but I've pretty much always sort of worked that way. Like I wish I was someone who could just like spill it out, and then go back and revise, because to me, when I have like a full draft and go through and edits and stuff like that part's fun because I feel like I'm really close, that I have something. So I wish I could just sort of like spill it out, but it just doesn't work for me. And I stopped a long time ago trying to do it differently. Now that said, like I will try to make each book feel a little bit different. Like it's a balance. Like, I want to be able to lean on the experiences of the past to have confidence to be like, oh yeah, you can do it. Like, because there are plenty of moments when you think, oh, this isn't working or I can't do it. And for me, like the danger zone is the first 100 pages. If I've ever, the times I've quit on novels is usually within that 100 page mark. But once I get past 100 pages, that's usually okay. I'm going to write this if it kills me kind of feeling. But anywhere between 0 and 100 is like, oh, is this really the thing? Or is there a new shiny thing I should be looking at? You know, which I think all writers sort of struggle with. And honestly, it helps to have like a publishing schedule. You know, I'm super lucky and privileged to have, you know, deals with William Morrow. It helps to have a deadline. Like, you know, I can't afford to sit around and wallow in as much of writerly self-pity. I mean, I always wallow in it, but like at a certain point I have to be like, okay, damn it. You have to put some words on the page. You know, you've got a deadline looming.
Speaking of 500 word, sorry to cut you off. Just
Sure,
real quick side note. Speaking of the 500 word count, I know that Mallerman used that for his massive behemoth-sized book of Gloom
Really?
of the Cape. I'm not making that up, Brian. Am I? I definitely heard him say that.
No, and it almost drove him off the deep end if you listen to him.
Yeah.
I mean, he's somebody who, you know, has to exercise extreme self-restraint to write less than 4,000 words a day or something like that. But no, you're remembering that right.
Okay.
I'm curious with the way that you kind of, let's say, plan it out in a notebook. Let's say it's one of those, and chipping away at it with that 400 or 500 words a day. Do you find it's easier to, or I guess it happens less that you get into something and be like, I just don't love this idea, I'm just not going with it? Or is that more down to like publishing schedule? Like, well, I owe it, so now I have to write this.
Yeah, I mean, I can't overstate sort of the pressure of the idea of like, I have to, you know, write this idea kind of thing. I'm trying to think of a few. So like A Head Full of Ghosts was written because I was 100 pages into another novel that initially I was super excited about, but then I got bogged down, didn't know what to do. And even like, if I just stepped back and tried to be objective, I could see that I was doing other things as opposed to writing. Like, oh, I'm going to read this thing because it's research, even though it had nothing to do with the book. So luckily I had the idea for A Head Full of Ghosts, and that was kind of hard because my agent was expecting this other book that I was writing. But I was just so excited about the idea for A Head Full of Ghosts. I mean, it felt scary. I was like, you know what, I'm going to quit this other thing and start writing A Head Full of Ghosts. And then like, just give it as a surprise to my agent later. Surprise. And with Survivor Song, I hadn't actually started another book, but I had started taking notes, and I'd been thinking about this other book for a long time. And at first I was super excited. And then maybe I'll go back to it someday, but I think the more I thought about it, I was like, oh man, that I don't know if I'm ready for that book yet. And also I think it would be a really long book. And I sort of let time purposefully start getting tight. I'm like, okay, well, I can't do that book now because I knew I would need more than a year. So I need a new idea, and sort of came up with Survivor Song. So yeah, that's how it usually happens. I mean, knock on wood, I've never really been into something like super deep into it. Like, you know what, I hate this. God, knock on all the wood in the world. I hope that doesn't happen with the thing I'm working on now.
Oh God. You know what? I just want to touch on agents because you're the one that made me a while ago. It's probably when you were on Brian Keene's show. So it's an older episode. It was actually when Head Full of Ghosts came out, I believe. Well, anyways, you talked about agents saying that you are better without one than to have a bad one. And I know you've talked about this all the time. For my listeners that haven't heard that, I think it's amazing advice because it definitely, when I was newer, it helped me kind of pull the idea of any agent's good enough. So if you have any comments on that.
Sure. So it's funny. I've been really fortunate to have had the same agent since 2006. Although sort of weirdly, I felt like the closest we ever came to not working together was with A Head Full of Ghosts, because I showed him a partial, you know, in his defense, you know, I showed him the first 100 pages, like, hey, surprise, you know, and he didn't know what the rest of it was going to be. So like, he gave me some feedback that really threw me for a loop. And I just decided, I'm going to plow forward. And, you know, if he doesn't want to rep it at the end, then I guess I'll have to find somebody new. But he loved it when it was a full manuscript. So anyway, I think, most of the writers, like, and I don't think I'm talking out of school, but like, huge writers like Stephen Graham Jones has been through multiple agents. My friend Stuart Anand, who I mentioned, semi-famously for him, like his first 7 books were with 7 different agents because each one wanted the same book and Stuart always wants to do a different idea. So in terms of like, you're better off with no agent than a bad agent. So like, what's a bad agent? So a bad agent is one that doesn't communicate with you, like won't answer your emails. It's not that like if you send an email that they have to answer it within an hour, certainly within a day or two. To me, other huge warning signs are is if they submit your work and then it's like 3-4 months later and they still haven't heard back from editors yet, that's a really bad sign because that means your agent doesn't have any pull, doesn't have any relationships with these editors, which is really important, or isn't following up because he doesn't feel, this agent doesn't feel as strongly about you on your behalf. Like those are all things agents do. Yeah, to me, like those are the biggest warning signs. Like other ones can be a little bit more obvious. I'm not going to mention like an anthology, but like at one point there was a little bit of a dust up online over an anthology where like the anthologist was trying to sell the whole anthology, the whole thing as a package, the movie rights. And they were telling the writers like, hey, this is a really good deal. You have to give up, I forget what percentage it was. Any percentage is too high. You have to give up a certain percentage of your film rights for your story, to this person. Like, no, you never give up film rights. I mean, there are some basic things like, 10 minutes of Googling, like you do not give up any percentage of your film rights. No good agent would ever sign a contract that would do that. So
yeah, that's dumb.
yeah. So I think that the harmful thing, like when I say you're better off with no agent than a bad agent, let's say you had a bad agent and this agent, they sent your book to all these editors. Now, like you figure out, okay, this agent really doesn't have much pull. Like if you go get a new agent, you really can't have your new agent send to those same editors because, they've already, been sent the book or been pitched the book. And, I think most of them, maybe they never read the book in the first place, but like, I think that agent would be like, I don't want to submit to where it's already been submitted. And actually I learned the hard way. I went through that with the first novel that I wrote that I thought was any good. And it was sort of a goofy comedy set in Boston. I had an agent who's like, let me try sending it to an editor. And I was like, are you signing me? He's like, just let me send it to this one editor. And like, and I sort of ruined a potential relationship with somebody else. And after he sent it to one editor and they passed, he was like, yeah, I'm not going to work with you. And it was really shady. But again, like so young, I was just so excited at the idea of, oh, here's an agent from an actual agency that's going to, maybe represent my book. I don't know. It's hard. I think the hardest thing now, it's harder now than it was even in mid 2000s to be patient, just because of all you see everybody like announcing their, great news on Twitter and Facebook, et cetera. And it's great. I'm always happy for friends when they have successes, but it's hard not to have that sort of pile onto you sometimes and be like, man, why isn't this happening sooner? Or why isn't this deal happening? So I do think it's hard to be patient. I'm glad I sort of came up when I did, because I took 2 years to find an agent. Like I just sucked up hundreds of agent rejects, and I was never was tempted to try just put it out there myself. Because I knew like I can't market and edit my own book. That's just not something I have time or the bandwidth to do. I wrote this damn book. Someone's going to pay me for it, or it's going to sit in a trunk, which it's doing now, which is fine. That novel did its job. I learned how to write a novel somewhat, and it got me my agent. So sorry, that was a really long, rambly answer.
No, that's perfect. I actually heard something similar, not about agents, but with film adaptation or TV adaptation from George R.R. Martin in an interview. He was talking about how he didn't give up Game of Thrones until he knew the right person, but he learned that a lot of new writers, if they have a option, they're going to jump on it, but they don't put any thought, or maybe the excitement overpowers like who's really trying to represent my work, because that's a part of your heart and soul. And I think the excitement overshadows that in the beginning for a lot of people.
I would say for George R.R., can I call him George R.R.? It's a little bit easy to say because for him, easier, I should say, because he was a national best-selling author who could afford to be like, you know what, I'm not going to do an option with this person.
Yeah.
I'm sure he had sort of the pick of the litter, whereas, most of us, myself included, do not. Yeah. So, I mean, Hollywood is its own other sort of strange thing. I have many an author who have done quite well just say, hey, take the option money and run. You're better off if it never gets made. So, I mean, it's just, there's, any number of weird avenues you could go down with Hollywood.
Paul, why don't you tell us about the synopsis for Pallbearers Club, and then John, jump in, sir, with whatever random noise or sound or question you want.
Oh boy, I'm so bad at like the synopsis. I'm gonna make the book sound so boring. But so the book, I'll say this, is presented as a found memoir by someone who names himself Art Barbara. Like the first line of the book is, "I am not Art Barbara," or as we say, come on, Patrick or Brennan, give us a good Art Barbara in a Boston accent. Who wants to do it?
Oh God, I can't do impressions. Don't even say
Barbara.
I am not
Barbara.
I am not Aunt Barbara.
That's very Kennedy.
Yeah.
I am a
Or
Catholic
Quimby.
Irishman from Mass. So
So anyway, it's a found memoir, and it starts when he's writing about when he's a high school student in the late 80s, about to graduate. Or it's a senior year. He's not a very popular, doesn't have a lot of friends. He sort of suffers with some back ailments, including scoliosis, a curvature of the spine, and other things. And in his sort of discovery of panic, is like, oh man, I need an extracurricular activity to put on my college application. Applying to school in the late 80s was much different than now. Those were, especially, speaking from experience, they're almost like kind of afterthoughts, like what you put on your application. Anyway, so he starts the Pallbearers Club, where he volunteers at a local funeral home to serve elderly and homeless who don't have a lot of living or any living relatives, which is a very sweet, thing to do. But also, as a horror, I was like, whoa, dead people, it can be creepy, right? So not very many classmates join Art's club, and none of them stick with the club. But a strange woman that he names in the book, Mercy, joins the club, and she's older. He's not sure how much. Maybe she's in college, but she's a big punk music fan, and she likes to take Polaroid pictures of corpses, as one does, but also people too. And then really sort of the book, and she may or may not be a supernatural being from a corner of New England folklore. See, I told you I'm doing a terrible job pitching my book here. But the whole book is this memoir that Art writes, and it expands over 3 decades. And hopefully, I think one of the fun parts of the book is Art and Mercy's relationship. To me, that's sort of really the emotional core of the book. And after the end of when I say it's a found memoir, Mercy found this memoir. Like you find out eventually, how maybe she found it. But after every chapter Art writes, she has like sort of a rebuttal, like a handwritten rebuttal. And then she also can't help herself and starts writing notes in the margins. And I'm so pleased and lucky that my publisher actually published it physically that way. It looks so cool, if I do say so myself, with the underlines and like the handwritten notes, and the hardcovers, the first edition hardcovers, it's actually 2-color ink, red and black. So I'm just sort of geeking out over the physical part of this book.
Was that a hard sell?
It was. I tried to warn my poor editor, Jen. She's the best in the world. But like, even when I pitched the book, I'm like, hey, I think, there's going to be these comments in the margins, and they really need to be there. And my agent was on board. He's like, okay, yeah. And initially, when I first turned in the manuscript, she tried to maybe talk out of it, but she hadn't read the full manuscript yet. It's like, they really have to be there. I'm sorry. And to her credit, she not only accepted it, but really stepped up. Like, I never asked for the 2-ink thing, and they, decided to do that on their own, and really knocked it out of the park. But she reminds me whenever we speak about how much of a pain in the ass it was, and said, make sure the next book, I said, oh no, the next book's going to have pop-up pages and holograms. She doesn't think that joke was funny.
No, she doesn't know it's not a joke.
Right.
So, you mentioned that the relationship between Art and Mercy is kind of the emotional core. And I really, reading it, I kind of latched onto the idea pretty quickly that without the margin notes and without the end of chapter notes, that emotional core doesn't, I don't want to say it doesn't work, but I really really think that the notes is what sells it. I think that it's kind of that experimental, if you will. Sorry if you don't like that term, but like it, in this case, it was a necessary ingredient. So I could imagine, wanting / needing to fight for that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think if it was just art, I mean, listen, he's definitely sort of like a depressive, manic, and at times self-pitying and annoying, purposefully so. Mercy's definitely there to sort of to balance some of that and sort of to call art and some of his own bullshit, or to call me on some of my own bullshit. Because art, I would say, is very close to myself, thinly veiled.
I had a very Dennis Lehan, Shutter Island feeling towards the mid to definitely the end.
By mid, you mean middle, right?
Oh, yeah, I really wasn't even making a joke then.
Just checking. I knew you were. Yeah, I just wanted to, for the younger audience out there, you didn't really mean mid.
No,
you meant middle.
No, yeah. When I tweeted that as an instant classic, I wasn't. I try not to speak in hyperbole. Yeah, man. It's the best ones always. I'm not telling you guys anything new, but they always do something. They have their own awesome twist on a familiar story, and that's what you got here.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if this spoils anything, let me know and I'll cut this part out. But I took it, I know it's different for every reader, but I kind of took it as a play, not play on word, kind of a commentary sort of narration thing with mental health. Man, it's really hard not to spoil it. Why I think that. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it there. Mr. Sure. Langan, can you jump in and save me?
No, I mean, I know what you're saying. Sorry, was John, you want to add?
Go right ahead.
I mean, I think that's definitely there. Like, I don't want to my fear is like every time I try to describe it, it's like I'm thinking about what this book means to me. To me, the magic about a relationship any writer has with readers is, your book's going to mean something to you. I mean, many things to you. And you want to communicate some, if not all of that to the reader, but the reader's going to get their own stuff out of it. So, I don't want to get too inside of myself, but, I would say when I wrote this book, when I had the idea, I was excited because I wanted to write something that was different than Cabin and Survivor Song. So I felt like those two books took a chunk out of me in a way, and I don't mean that in it's such hard work, poor writers, but those two books so engaged with the awful now. I felt like I needed a break. And this was November of 2019 when I got the idea for Pallbearers Club. I was like, and I was also a little bit worried that my editor and publisher was really wanted me to go down a thriller route. Nothing against thrillers. There are great thriller writers and great thrillers out there. That's just not my thing. Partly because plot's not my strength. I'm not interested in the thriller plot per se. I'm interested in the characters. So I was on the search for something that would take place over a span of time and maybe go a little inward as opposed to outward. And so the Pallbearers Club luckily sort of, fit that bill. And to go back to your original statements, I mean, I do think on one level, this is certainly, for me, it's a little bit about my relationship with writing and that how it's tied in with anxiety and depression at times. And how it's not all, so most of the time it's a healthy relationship, and sometimes it isn't. I don't know.
I hope I'm the first one to say this, and especially because truly, I'm not kissing your ass when I say this, but of all the writers I've read, you have the most ingrained Stephen King in you. And I feel like this is your misery.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored. You mean my second dad, Stephen? Can I call him that? No. Yeah, I mean,
I think he'd be okay with that at this point. He seems to really like you.
It would be impossible for even subconsciously for there not to be, Stephen King coming out just because, I didn't become a reader for pleasure until my early 20s. But what I did consume was all the Stephen King 80s adaptations. I watched all those movies over and over again. And then when I first fell in love with reading, it was all the Stephen King books. And then, it wasn't until Dance Macabre that I found, I found Peter Straub because I'd read Talisman, right? But from Dance Macabre, I found like Shirley Jackson and Clive Barker and so many other
Jack
writers. But
Finney.
yeah, so I mean, King was the first like twice for me, really. Loving his movies or his adaptations, and then seeing things done better, in his books, which I had no idea of at the time.
Mr. Langan, sorry, so rude of us. You go ahead, sir, please.
I think it would just be funny if every time I go to say something, another person breaks in, and it's just like, and here's one
I
more
want it
thing,
on the
Paul.
record. I don't feel bad because you're not nice to me when you come on here.
Shut up, Brennan. But, I just want that to be the tagline for this episode.
No, that's actually the trailer.
Yeah.
Shut up.
No, it's there's like so much to in all seriousness to respond to and to agree with and what Paul is saying. I was like going back all the way a couple of minutes to the patience thing. And I'm like, on the one hand, like, I guess I was thinking, so I'm about 50 pages in to the Pallbearers Club, and I have the same reaction you guys are having. And I'm thinking to myself, man, this is this is your 8th published novel. I was trying to do the math, but as you know, math is not my strong suit. So 8th published, 9th complete novel, and you have a few other partial novels, I guess, or whatever, right? And so on the one hand, it's like it's like you're an overnight success in 8 novels, I mean, even with Head Full of Ghosts, which was the one that I think really broke you big. That was not the first novel you wrote. It took a while to get there, and I think I don't think of either of us as old writers, but you're like, but we're not new writers anyway,
right.
And I do think that what's the big secret? Yeah, is patience, and I think that has to do with the agent thing as well. You got to do a little bit of homework with agents. There were agents who are good agents, who are solid agents, who get good deals for their clients and so on. And then there were agents who were like, they kind of want to be writers themselves, and they're kind of using this as like I don't know what, like as if by repping you, they'll get themselves in good with the editors, and they can kind of leave you behind. And I mean, it's kind of it's weird, I guess. And you've also got agents who are trying to take advantage of you and of all the different sort of there's all the big thing now, right, is platforming. That you're gonna have a novel, and it's going to be a video game, and it's going to be a Netflix series, and there'll be a feature film, and there'll be action figures and so on, which I mean is not for you financially as a writer is not necessarily a bad thing, but I think maybe like for when people talk about platforming, they're talking about IP, right? And they're thinking about Marvel movies. They're like, and we all want the Marvel money, right? That's the problem. But I just feel like as a writer, you got to be thinking about, what is it I'm writing? What is the thing I'm writing, and is it the best piece of writing that I can do? Because all that other stuff, the action figures, they may happen, they may not happen. And there's no way. I mean, publication may not happen to in the first place. Like, that's what you gotta control, what you can control, and so much of that, like you have the patience to write a novel and to write novel after novel after novel, and not get distracted by here's another anthology, and would you write a story for this, and here's another thing, would you do something for that? And I'm not saying there's obviously I do a lot of anthology stuff. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I am saying it's patience, and like being able to be patient with the choices you made. So you make a choice, I'm going to write novels. Well, you write those novels, and and that's hard. Like, now you're at the point where you can be like, I have these novels, and I have this. We as your readers can be like, wow, look at what this guy has done. But you have to have the patience to commit to that along the way. There's probably some kind of sports or even a musical metaphor, if you're trying to play the guitar, right? I mean, you have the image in your head, and I say this because I've been trying to learn to play the guitar the past year. So like, you have the image of yourself in the head as like Eddie Van Halen or whatever, and what you're actually doing is like, ow, C chords are hard. And, but if you can hold on, you'll get the C chord eventually, and so yeah, so I don't know. I'm just that there's a lot to think about there. That just the importance of patience, which I feel like in our, I don't know, like in a sort of the digital world we live in, is just really, really hard, because I feel like everything is about producing the dopamine hit of the like on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, and learning to do without that. That's probably something that's, if you want to be a writer, is something that's really, really important, I think.
What about reviews too? I meant to ask Paul earlier. I actually don't know this answer, but as an author, what is your suggestion about how you handle reviews? Meaning, like, do you look at them ever? Do you think it's healthy to look at them?
It's probably not all that healthy to look at them. But it's human nature. It's impossible to not look at them. I feel like I went down like a terrible spiraling road with a head full of ghosts, where like before, because I was so excited that I was getting a second shot publishing, and I was very excited about the book. I was reading everything on Goodreads, everything on Amazon. Like, this is insane. Why am I doing this to myself? And when Cabin at the End of the World came out, I read one Amazon review. I was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm not. And I've held to that. I haven't read any other Amazon reviews of my books. And Goodreads too, although, sometimes those slip through on like Twitter or, so I come across those kind of reviews. Like, I tend to always read reviews from venues. So I don't know if that's any healthier or not healthier or what.
Do you remember when you did one of the Little Sleep? I can't remember, Little Sleep or No Sleep. So you remember the review thing you did? Is that still around anywhere?
Yeah, that's still on YouTube. I did
even funnier now.
Yeah, I did a video about how I deal with reviews, and and it was sort of just a comedic. I was at my brother's house reacting to like a bad review by like smashing it with a hammer or a shovel in the snow, and like had a good review framed, just being goofy. 2009 Tremblay. No, I mean, they still sting. They still, like, that hasn't gotten better for me. People always say, oh, writers, you should have a thick skin. Like, I don't know, you do. Like, I feel like I have a thick skin dealing with like the professional side of things and getting like my editor's comments and stuff like that. But the other part of it, and part of this is my own brain's fault, that like, part of why I wrote the Pallbearers Club is I feel like I made the discovery of like, people ask you enough times, why do you write? And I'm like, well, I think I write because, I was so miserable in high school, like so many people were. I felt like that's still there inside of me. And writing is me trying to prove to that teenager stuck inside of me that I had something worth saying. And so when I kind of figured like, geez, I think that's why I write. I don't know if that's the right answer or not. Like, who the hell knows why they write? I think in a better sort of frame of mind, I like to write because I get really excited when I read awesome stuff, and that makes me want to try something like it. So I guess in a more happier, more adult way, like figuring out that it's okay to like things, even though as much of the world it's uncool to like things, it's okay to be passionate about things. Like John, I mess around with the guitar because I love music so much. So I definitely also started writing because I was reading these things that really got me excited. And then I started getting like, hey, maybe you could try. Why not? Like, what's the worst that could happen? Twitter, that's the worst that could happen. Yeah.
I was just thinking, but you're much better at the guitar than I am. So,
I started when I was, I started my senior year in college. So I've had quite a head start on you, John.
Wow. Wow. Was that an ageist joke? Thanks. Thanks a lot. That's, I can't even. Wow.
Paul Tremblay, canceled.
Yeah. Jeez, I didn't even say, like, when you said you imagine yourself as Eddie Van Halen playing guitar. I was like, no, I imagine John as some guitarist with his shirt off playing his guitar. And I was trying to think of what guitarist famously plays without a shirt.
Angus Young
used to a lot, right?
Angus Young would be, right.
He's from the 70s.
Yeah, but that means I'm putting you in like schoolboy shorts too. And like, no, I'm not doing that.
That's hot. All right, next topic.
This conversation is taking strange turns.
Yes.
We have one more. We have one more, and you didn't answer it on Twitter. So if it's a pass, just pass. How does this is from Chris DeLeo? Okay. How does he determine the structure of his stories and the techniques he uses? There's another question, but I'll just leave it there.
Yeah. No, I saw that you said, "Oh, I'll ask him this," so that's why I didn't answer on Twitter. I figured I'd answer it now.
I didn't know if I came off like a dick.
No, not at all.
A little bit.
A little bit.
That's what she said.
Mid dick, mid.
Oh no.
Nice.
That isn't that one of Stephen King's worlds in the Dark Tower?
It might be. I'm a sucker for like fun narrative sort of techniques or twists or ways to present story. But sort of like the ringing thing I try to keep in my head is like, okay, if you're going to do that, then you're going to make sure it's there for a reason. It just can't be a gimmick. Happily with the Pallbearers Club, as soon as like, a student at my, like really briefly, this is, a student at my school in November of 2019 got up in front of everybody and said, "Hey, I'm starting this club, the Pallbearers Club." I was half asleep because it was Monday morning. But as soon as he said the Pallbearers Club, I was like, "What?" Instantly woke up. I was like, "Oh my God, it's amazing. I have to use that somehow."
Right.
And because it was a senior announcing it, I thought of myself in high school. It's like, geez, what if, what I never would have done something like that. And I was like, okay, let's have a character that was very much like me doing something like this. What would that look like, and how would it, how would that, how would that happen? So I sort of, then soon after I was like, okay, I'm going to write this like this is a weird memoir and use a lot of autobiographical stuff. It's like, well, someone needs to find this memoir. Who finds it? And like, what's she going to do with it? So I instantly said, oh, this would be really, she's going to have rebuttals, but I actually want to write in the margins. So I was excited about all of that, like, especially the writing in the margins, because, now I have a reason to do something cool and shiny in a book. An example of one that took me a lot longer to figure out would be my short story, Notes from the Dog Walkers.
I love
which
that story.
Which appears in, thank you, in Growing Things.
Mm-hmm.
For years, like, because when we first got my dog, Holly, my kids were older and she was going to be home alone for, multiple days. So like, okay, we're going to hire a dog walker, which is a weird thing. And the dog walker started leaving notes. I'm like, these notes are amazing. And I tried writing fake notes to fool my family, but they saw through me right away. But I was like, I want to write a story using these notes from dog walkers, but like, I have no idea how I'm going to do this. And I even tried, like, I did a book with Brian Evanson that came out through a publisher. It was called Another Way to Fall, and it took 2 novellas. But before we did that, I was like, hey, Brian, maybe we should try writing this novella through dog walker notes. He was like, yeah, maybe, maybe not. So he politely said no. So I don't know. It's just that I wanted to do dog walker story through notes, but I had to figure out how. And it took me a couple of years before I found a way in. So sometimes, Chris, I do start with a narrative form that I want to mess around with, but I try to make it, not just the form, but it has to fit the story.
Yeah, you do have a really neat way of writing epistolary style stories.
Thanks.
And I thought it was funny because you do mention Dracula, and I'm pretty sure we've mentioned it's a vampire book, and like Dracula, it's epistolary. Yeah.
Right.
Growing Things was actually the very first book when I started reviewing books. And I really enjoyed it. I got a signed copy when the owner of that store in your town, I think it was.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Mad Mama Vintage.
Yeah. I let a friend borrow that, and she had it for like 2 years. I'm like, I'm going to need that book back like now.
Yeah.
And she didn't have dust jackets on any of the books. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, please tell me that these are somewhere else. It's in good condition, but yeah, I almost had a freak attack with that.
Oh, that's a bad book friend.
No book for you. He just follows it up with a comment. So this is Chris again. He always makes such cool, daring choices. The second person plural, present tense in cabin, the blank pages in song, the blog entries in Ghost, and the marginalia in Club. I actually did have a question to follow that up with. Mm-hmm. We've kind of touched on it, but how difficult is it for like stylistic choices? Is it something where, like, I'm beta reading this one book right now, right? And it's got stylistic choices in the beginning of sections of the book where the chapter, I know audio listeners can't see this, but it's like the word is kind of like that and then slanted and it kind of zigzags. Is that something where you should I don't know how else to word this. Is that something where you should make damn sure that the printer is capable, whoever that company is capable of doing that? Because it doesn't seem like just anyone could do that.
Yeah, I mean, one would hope that, like, now, given the technology at our sort of disposal, that, what we can and can't print should be pretty much up to the imagination. Like I sort of joked earlier, short of holograms and fold out pages. I mean, if there's a will, if people are willing to put in the work and the investment, there's a way. I mean, Mark Danielewski's House of Leaves, I mean, sort of did everything that you could possibly imagine on a book, and someone printed it. Yeah, I would say it's something like you need to try and like fail. Like I've, and short stories for me are times where I've definitely, messed around with that kind of thing. And maybe it wasn't as successful some other times. Hopefully it's more successful in the books. And I've tried it and figured out that, hey, it didn't work. Nothing super major, but like with Cabin at the End of the World, I initially, really the only thing that changed from draft to being published, there's a section in the book that goes into Leonard's point of view, third person. And when I initially wrote it, I wrote it as second person. So I wanted it to be a little bit jarring. I wanted it to almost be a warm up for the very last chapter, which was going to be second person plural, which I knew was going to be jarring. But after writing, I was like, no, this doesn't work. Like, I don't want, because it's second person, I don't want people thinking I sympathize with Leonard. So, I changed it. So part of it's like in the moment you try it, and then if you figure out it doesn't work, you got to take it out.
Brendan, you want to jump to the what are you reading section now?
Yeah, one thing I was going to throw out is I love how on the movie poster they kind of borrowed from the UK version of the UK art. I love this cover so much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's really cool. All right, so this is kind of the outro section where we just ask a few final questions
about John Langan.
Obviously,
quite possibly.
Now
that's why I'm here.
Where are his tickle spots? What? That's weird.
Also,
I don't know.
Paul swore he would never tell.
Yes.
No, okay. For realsy, so this time. Paul, what are you currently reading?
John, you can do a good Werner Herzog voice, right? I'm actually reading Werner Herzog's short novel.
About the Japanese guy on the island, right?
Why am I so bad with titles and it's not in this room? It's like because the Twilight Space.
Titles are meaningless, Paul. So it has nothing to do with anything. None of this matters, Paul. We've all be dead in dust.
Damn.
In years. A few years, that's all.
Yes, and that's the voice I hear while I'm reading this book. But right before that, I finished two books that aren't going to be published for a bit. I finished. And this was John Fram, who wrote The Nightlands.
Mm-hmm.
No, so I think that's the name of the book. I'm sorry, John. A really wonderful book that came out last summer that mixed horror with like Texas Friday Night Lights, mixed with LGBTQ plus fiction. The Bright Lands. There it is, The Bright Lands, which is really good. So he and I got in touch last summer, and he had asked me to read a draft of his new novel just for some feedback, which I was happy to do. And it was really good. Before that, I read Mariana Enriquez's forthcoming novel, Our Shade of Night. It'll be published in February. And not to get too hyperbolic, but like, I don't know, like you get to our age, John's age is beyond my age. So I don't want to say his age.
You son of a bitch. You son of a bitch.
Ageist piece of shit.
When you get to our age, I don't know, like, I don't know how you guys feel, but like, I feel like my top 5 books list is like fixed, right? You assume, I'm going to love books and movies, but like,
right.
As an adult, you're like, like how often do you think, this is like one of my favorite books I've ever read. And Mariana's novel is easily one of my favorite novels now. Wow. It's on my list forever. It's amazing. It's a big sprawling 700-page book. There's a cult, there's this like old moneyed family in Argentina. It's definitely doing like creepy cosmic horror culty stuff. but really, the heart of the book is, following this different sets of characters over decades in the 80s, 90s, and even it tips back to the 70s too, of Argentina. So like the dirty war of Argentina, the brutal dictatorship that they lived through. And then there's just wonderful like slice of life stuff. And then like amazing starbursts. There are these moments of just pure, unadulterated, disturbing horror, terror that just took my breath away. And it's just so wonderfully written. It's funny, the publisher described it to me as it's Roberto Bolaño meets Stephen King, which I think is true, but I would say it's more like Roberto Bolaño, and I'm not just saying this to blow smoke up John's ass, but it's like Bolaño meets like a Langan or Laird Barron cosmic horror story.
That's pretty damn cool.
All right, I'll forgive your ageist remark.
So,
and I know Mariana is a fan of John's work too. So,
what's her name again? I'm sorry, I kind of
Mariana Enriquez. She's had two. This is her first novel that's published in English. She's had two short story collections come out in the last 4 or 5 years, and one of them is called Things We Lost in the Fire, or What We Lost in the Fire, yeah, which is one of my favorite collections of the past decade. She's amazing. So if you haven't read her, read that collection and then be ready for the novel in February.
That's damn cool. Mr. Langan, what are you currently reading?
Well, I'm reading the Pallbearers Club, and which is really an astonishing achievement. It really is. And I feel bad that Paul is here because like the fact that he's here makes it seem as if, well, what else am I going to say? You know what I mean? Like I wish in a way he weren't here so I could say it and people would be like, there we go. And because it's just, but I'm also reading the Mariana Enriquez novel, which I have it right here. It's Our Share of Night, gigantic, which is also just an astonishing book. And it's kind of crazy. There's all this good stuff that's being done right now, and some of it's coming out from big publishers. Some of it's coming out from smaller publishers, independent presses. I have my copies of Screams from the Dark, Ellen Datlow's monster book, which full disclosure, I have a story in, but which has stories by Glenn Hirschberg and Nathan Ballingrud and Laird, just this crazy assortment of people. And I've got a bunch of stuff that I'm looking forward to that hasn't come out yet. Dan Coxon's Isolation anthology. But I think you have a story in that, don't you, Paul?
Yeah, it's a reprint, so you've read that one before.
Oh, okay. Anyway. Well, so much. I'm canceling that order then.
sorry, Dan.
But I'm looking forward to Doug Morano's Subterranean Horrors book. And both of these were anthologies that I missed the chance to contribute to, but what can you do? And yeah, I'm trying to catch up on movies too that I have. I saw Ep Part 1, but I never watched Ep Part 2, which everybody tells me is disappointing. But I feel like maybe it's not. Maybe I'll watch it. And I'll be like, I'll watch it and I'll be like, oh, that's not terrible or whatever. This is what I feel I have in common with Stephen Graham Jones, and what frustrates Laird and to a lesser extent Paul to no end, is that I'll just watch anything and be like, well, it had its moments, it wasn't bad, and Laird is having an embolism over here, no, that was it. So yeah, I like to any chance I get to say, well, of its kind, it was okay, and Laird is like, no, it was made with food. Which, there was a movie made with food a few years ago, which is actually pretty good. It's about 5 minutes long. I can't remember the name of it.
Sounds lovely.
Made by a French-Canadian guy, I want to say. But anyway.
Wait, so the thing was just, what was it about? It was just about food?
It was some kind of story, but everything was made out of food. All the sets and the characters.
So
and it's really
foodmation instead of claymation.
Exactly, and the thing is that it's this vaguely sort of Lovecraftian kind of story, cosmic horror kind of story. So it's really super gross, but it's really cool. Yeah,
actually, this sounds pretty neat.
Yeah, it's I can't remember. If you could, how hard could it be to find Lovecraftian food movie if you do a Google search?
Sounds delicious.
Brendan, what are you currently reading?
I'm just not sure I want to Google Lovecraftian food movie.
Yeah, you might. Yeah.
Some weird porn
empty the cache after that search.
Yeah. I am reading The Island by Adrian Mckinty, and I'm very mixed on it because I'm like 120 pages in.
And there's no island. No.
There's very much an island. They get to an island very quickly, but it's like it feels like I've hit a lot of these beats before. It's like you're reading it like, yeah, I've seen that, but at the same time, I can't put the damn thing down. So obviously, it's all the blurbs on the cover promise me that it's unpredictable. I'm hoping I just haven't gotten to that part yet, but it's definitely written in a very engaging manner. The other one I just finished, which I am not mixed at all about. This is an awesome book. Is Ronald Malfey's Blackmouth. It's out July 19th, and it's phenomenal. He had Come With Me, I think, came out last year and did really well. Everybody loved it. I think this one's better, or at least I liked it more. I'll phrase it that way. It's got a lot of coming of age elements. I for whatever reason, I always dig horror that brings in magicians and works that element in. I think there's a lot of good stories, but not enough good stories that kind of do that. And this one does a nice job with it. So I hope people will check that out. Patrick.
Yeah, so I am, for physical copies, Lansdale's Bubba and the Cosmic Bloodsuckers. It's a prequel to Bubba Hotep.
Oh.
And I'm actually prepping for the next episode. Edward Lee, he has a new one with K-Traps Publishing Company. Man, I'm struggling to think about it. What is it?
Evil Cookie.
Evil Cookie, that's it. So it's called Three Little Pigs. It's just was it 3 novellas or are they full novels? Because 400 something pages.
Three novellas. One I can't tell you when they were written, but 2 of them are older and one is a brand new contribution.
Yeah, one was late. The Pig was 97. The other one was a few years ago. Well, whatever. That's what I'm reading. And I'm enjoying them. They're very different from Paul's work. And I just finished Pallbearers Club like super early this morning. Yeah, man. So I can't get enough of that ending. Like, I thought that was phenomenal. You got one ending, which I'll just leave it at this. It tells you what the title means. And I thought that was beautifully done. I thought it was equivalent to what Barker did with the Books of Blood. And
oh, Jesus.
Thank you. Well, I mean, no one's going to know what that means unless they read the book. So I don't think that spoils it. And then you have the second ending, which just, I don't know. You have a way of like, you're kind of like vodka, where like, you don't think that you drink too much of it. And, there's horror. It's not a bad thing, man. I mean, I'm Irish, okay. So I'm not knocking alcohol. And then you stand up and you're like, holy fuck, I've been surrounded by horror the whole time. And now I'm almost dead. And now I'm dead. Oh, but now I'm a vampire.
I love it.
I've always had a Paul more as like the Zima of
oh, Jesus.
Oh,
Zima.
Shots fired.
It's
White Claw, would you prefer White Claw?
It's epoch appropriate though for Pallbearers Club, I guess.
Yeah.
Zima 90s. Man.
Zima, yeah.
Have some za with it. That's an 80s reference.
Yeah.
So Paul, where can people follow you?
Hopefully not outside my house.
I was gonna say outside your house.
Yeah. There's John. So I'm on Twitter at Paul G. Tremblay. I'm on Instagram, the same handle, Paul G. Tremblay. Facebook too. I'm unfortunately everywhere. It's obnoxious. Facebook too, yeah.
What's your middle name?
Gaetan. We were talking about French Canadian food horror. Maybe it was one of my relatives, Paul Gaetan Tremblay.
Wow, that's pretty.
So Gaetan or Gaetan was my grandfather's name, so I get that from him.
Nice. What I was trying to think of a local reference to that pizza joint in Stoughton. I can't think of it now. With the
Town Spa.
That's it. I fucking love that pizza, man.
I like it. I prefer like New York style, like big. So for people like Town Spa is like small, like pub pizza. It's very good pub pizza. Yeah. But I like a big, sloppy, greasy. So actually, my trick at Town Spa, Patrick, if you ever next time you're in this area, because it is like a, thin, super thin, like cracker pizza kind of thing. So I get it with extra crust. So it almost makes it like a Uno style pizza, and that's the stuff. And the extra crust is like 50 cents more. It's like, come on,
Can you just invite me to follow you there?
We'll go to Town Spa. Let me know when you're back in Bridgewater. We'll go to Town Spa.
I will take you up on that, and I'll do a terrible Boston accent.
Town Spa.
Mr. Langan, where can people follow you?
Same thing. I'm all over social media: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I don't do TikToks, but God, it's probably just a matter of time.
Right.
Mid TikToks. Yeah.
Not to interrupt John's story, because I'm going to say something nice about him again, but the publishing world is all like crazy about TikTok. That's like the new frontier. Book talk, because it's true. Like books are exploding, like backlists, because of TikTok. Like, I can't stomach that thought of like having to do another social media thing. And so we had like our meeting with, Zoom meeting with publicist and marketing person. I said, oh, well, if you want, I'll join TikTok, but it'll be a puppet account. A literal puppet account. If I can get a puppet that looks like me, and it would be
that
puppet
would be
Tremblay
fantastic.
That'd be hilarious.
Awesome.
Yeah, they were like really horrified. Like, we'll put a pin on that one.
No,
I went as far as going on Etsy and finding people that make like puppets that look like you for like $300. I'm like, man, that's really expensive.
It would be like Punch and Judy, right? And it would be like the Paul Tremblay puppet show, and you would have a different writer on, like a hapless writer like me, and it would end with you like clubbing us to death. Like that would be fantastic.
I like it. Yeah. But I would be tempted to get like, I would want like a Michael Sisko puppet.
No, the Michael Sisko puppet would just apparate. He would just like appear.
It would just be a black sock.
John, I do have a serious question, man. Like,
sorry, I want to say, John has a new book coming out like very shortly. Which I haven't read yet. So that's one of the books that I'm very much looking forward to reading this summer is Corpse Mouth, which is an amazing title.
Oh,
thank you. Yeah, it's a collection of my new collection of stories, and I think the ebook is available now. It's just my publisher, Ross Lockhart. He was in the hospital for a month with like diverticulitis related issues, and
with actually corpse mouth.
Yeah. And dead ass. And he
sounds bad. It sounds like rot.
Yeah, both ends.
You don't want that. But anyway, and supply chain issues and blah blah blah. So hopefully the book. Paul and I are supposed to be doing a thing together at the Strand July 7th. July 7th. So I'm really hoping the book is going to be, the physical book is going to be present there. But thank you. I appreciate the shout out.
Or maybe it'll be John and me puppets, like our puppet versions.
That would be awesome. And everybody's like, there's no hands holding them. Who's operating these things?
They're floating just like a drawer. Which was also awesome. The explanation.
Yeah, it all comes together.
What am I talking about? Read the fucking book and you'll find out. There you go. Brennan, where can people follow you? I don't know if we normally do that, but fuck it. I'm not going to answer the question.
We absolutely do not, but I'll just steal everybody else's answer. You can find me on social media at my name.
Oh, John, I meant to ask you, in all seriousness, and same for you, Paul, because you guys have we all have these tribes of people that we have friends with, and like Brennan's coming out with was it 5 books in the next like year or two or whatever.
It's obnoxious and it goes against the patience grain we've been stressing.
No, but I bring that up because he's one of my best friends, but
you hate him.
I I don't even give a shit how biased I sound because he's a fucking good writer. Do you guys ever, or did you in the beginning kind of feel cautious because it would seem like clear biased opinions coming out of your mouth about your friend, or did you guys never care? I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
I mean, in John's case, it was always easy because his fiction's amazing. So I've never had any sort of moral quandary. Now, other people I talk about, I'm just kidding.
I think that's the thing is that Paul and I sort of connected. We were on a panel together at ReaderCon, and I bought his book from him after that. And then, we just kind of like the root of our friendship was respect and admiration for one another's work. I mean, I can still remember reading The Little Sleep I got to the end of that book and I was like, holy shit, this is like a real novel. Like it wasn't like, sometimes you read stuff by friends or acquaintances or whatever, and you're like, it's not really a novel. It's just a book. It's okay, but like this was the kind of thing that like I just could have picked up. I could have gone into a bookstore, picked up and just read and be like, oh, okay, wow. And I was like so blown away. I felt the same way when I read Sarah Langan's first novel, that like I was so blown away that somebody I knew, that like one of my friends had actually written like a real book like this, and it is kind of funny. I don't think that ever, for me anyway, I don't think that ever was an issue with Paul or with Laird or Cisco or Sarah or Stephen, like Victor Laval, like there were these people who just, like, the integrity of their work spoke for itself. And if somebody wanted to like say, oh, he's just your friend, fine, go read the book. You don't believe me, go read the book and then shut up.
That's an excellent answer.
And John likes everything, as he established earlier.
I do. That's true. I like everything. I walk around. I'm like, look at this menu.
Brilliant.
This menu is terrific. Look at the drama. They put the panini next to the pasta.
Paul, do you have any final thoughts?
No, just excited to hear about it, Brendan. 5. Wow. I feel like a slacker, but I look forward to hearing more about your books that are coming out.
I appreciate that. Thank
Brendan,
you.
now's your time to say, well, this and that and so forth. They are good. They're
I will not
diverse.
shamelessly plug, but thank you.
It's a diverse group. Yeah, I was only kidding. I expected to. You're very modest, sir. Mr. Langan, do you have any final thoughts?
What a blast to get to hang out with my buddy.
Nice.
I had at work recently, my day job, I went from, like, I was sort of demoted, I guess you would say. It's fine. Anyway, one of my friends does tarot readings at work, and I was like, all right, what do I have to look forward to next? And obviously it's BS, but the reading that she gave me was like, pay attention to your friends and like sort of like know who your friends are, gather your friends around you, remain close to them, support them, they'll support you. And that was really good advice. And it remains really good advice. So I'm really happy to be able to hang out with Paul and make fun of him.
Thank you. Group hug.
Group hug. There we go. That's awkward. Yeah.
If we had puppets, they could hug. The puppets could do a lot of things.
Wait,
Sorry.
Wait. I've got wait.
Is that a tickle spot?
That's no. Oh, hang on. There we go.
Podcast visuals here.
Podcast visuals here.
I'm glad this is a video.
Look, there we go.
Finger friends.
Zombie John and Puppet Zombie Paul, and they're looking in their. Oh my God! What are they
making?
I actually have one that looks a little bit like me.
Who is that?
Alan Rickman.
No, it's Dr. Chilton from Hannibal TV show.
Come on.
All right, so here's
Alan Rickman.
Here's me and here's John.
It does look like Alan Rickman from Die Hard.
Yes.
We're back to the age jokes. Nice. Where's Smithers?
Hannibal. Sorry.
We have the hostages. I can't do the accent.
This is clearly not the mid episode that John has been on. This is, I think, the top episode that John has appeared on. Top ending for sure.
No, I'm trying to drag it down to mid. Everybody's going to be like, it was really great. Then Langan showed up and it went totally mid.
I'm going to get Taff in this randomly and Mallerman, see what happens. All right. I thought someone was going to jump in. Brennan, any final thoughts?
I don't want to make mean remarks about Josh
it.
Mallerman. Yeah, the Mallerman thing, I brought it right down.
How do I top puppets? I don't.
All right, my final thoughts.
One other thing, no, shut up. One other thing I wanted to throw out, and I wrote it down and then realized I didn't have a question about it, is I absolutely love the Providence locale in your story. And I'll be very interested to see, how readers who aren't from the area respond to it. I mean, I've lived 20 minutes from Providence all my life, but it's kind of one of those things, like, you can't understand Waterfire unless you've been to Waterfire.
Right.
And I've now found out that if you compliment Paul Tremblay online about his inclusion of Waterfire, Waterfire will find it and retweet it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, just, fun fact. But the atmosphere is kind of captured in there. Nights on Thayer Street, shows at Lupo's in the Strand. It sucked me in. And I hope that even people who haven't, excuse me, who haven't been to those venues and those places will kind of relate it to something that they spent their teens doing, their 20s doing, and just kind of let the atmosphere envelop them. I love this book, man. I can't wait for people to read it. It is out July 4th.
Yeah, July 5th.
And, everybody should go buy it.
Well, thank you. No, you guys honor me. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, that's the hope. I mean, that was actually the danger too. I probably shouldn't go on too long, but putting stuff like that in is like, had to figure out, would that work for a reader, or is that just in there for me and for other people that have experienced it? So hopefully through the magic of fiction, it works for readers who don't live near Boston or Providence.
It conjured up images of, because my wife went to college at Rhode Island College. So I spent a lot of time there before we moved to Jersey. So it made me think of different sections because I've traveled the same parts as you, and that's pretty awesome, man. My final thoughts are, Paul, we've wanted to talk to you for a while. It's been a real pleasure. Would love to have you back.
Yeah, absolutely. This was a lot of fun.
Mr. Langan, it is always a pleasure talking to you, man. You are one of the funniest bastards I know. So appreciate the laughs. And for listeners,
do I amuse you?
You do, like a clown.
Are you sitting on the floor now?
No, I just moved back and forward. My body accordions up and down. like the Ken Russell film Lair the White Worm.
Yes.
That's yeah.
I
can't wait to see what fan art is going to come out of that comparison.
God, that's a weird image. I was just going to say that, it's funny because you'll keep a straight face, John, and then you'll bust out and say something ridiculous. And I don't know how to take you sometimes, but I love it. And
that's the essence of my relationship with just about everybody I know. Paul especially.
Yeah.
He's like, "How is this?" I'm like, "It's shit." And he's like, "I don't know," so.
Did you like talking to just me and Paul today?
It was great. Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. Yeah.
Hey, you getting up with me sometimes. So this has been great. Next episode is with Edward Lee. Can't wait to talk to that guy. He is
You know what I like, Patrick? I like that at least you didn't go on about your 5 books that you've got coming out in the next whatever. And you were just like, let me talk about my books and me. And 5. And in Spanish, 5 is Cinco and all this kind of stuff.
Oh.
Yeah. I was just like, come on, man.
I'm just working.
I am a narcissistic son of a bitch.
Right. You were just like, Cinco. You were like, eins, zwei, drei, fünf, vier,
Is that German?
I guess.
Yeah, he went from Spanish to German.
Yeah,
John Langan, aggressive polyglot. That wasn't funny. Sorry, it's too late.
You lagged. I couldn't hear. I really couldn't. Yeah. Okay. So next episode, Edward Lee. It's been a real pleasure with you, Brennan, Mr. Langan. I don't know why I keep calling you Mr. Langan. John Langan and Paul Tremblay. Hope you guys have a great night. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You guys too.